I was not supposed to bleed. Not me. I had spent my life becoming clean. I washed thrice each day with spring water, crushed lavender into my wrists, whispered the old prayers while staring into my reflection until it stopped flickering. I carved my words carefully, walked in straight lines, memorized every moment of beauty I ever saw, so I could compare myself to it, and find myself lacking. But not forever, because I had heard of the thorn sanctum. They say it lies beyond the briarlands, where sunlight goes to die, a place the old monks abandoned, a place where no road dares lead. In the center of the sanctum is a flower that never wilts, a flower that stops time. If I found it, I could pluck it and become pure, untouched by rot, unblemished by history, immune to failure, a perfect self, forever. I entered the maze on the last day of spring. The briars breathed. I felt it, even if I couldn't see it. Their thorns shimmered black and red, like dried blood caught in moonlight. The paths twisted, not just across the land, but within my mind. Still, I walked. I did not fear thorns. I would not bleed. But the first thorn found me easily. A slip, barely a scratch on my palm. The briars trembled and bloomed. A black rose opened at my feet, and in its center, I saw a memory. My father drunk and raging, smashing the glass mirror I loved. Me too small to stop him, too afraid to speak. I turned away. The thorn wound burned. I walked faster. Another thorn, my elbow this time, caught on a hidden vine. Another bloom, another vision. The boy I struck with a stone, weeping in the orchard. He'd teased me for stuttering. I made sure he'd never laugh again. I told myself I was just, but the thorn said otherwise. Each step drew more blood. Each thorn remembered more than I wanted it to. I began to see them before they bloomed. Faces I buried, lies I painted gold, sins I wore like silk and called righteous. They were all waiting, inside me. I tried to turn back. The path behind was gone. Thorns had woven it shut. I was not a pilgrim. I was a prisoner. Deeper still, now the thorns sought me, leaping like snakes from the walls, kissing my skin, carving lines across my back and chest, and each cut bloomed, and each bloom showed me. Not the boy who prayed, not the voice that spoke the verses, but the creature beneath, the frightened one, the cruel one, the real one. I fell once, crawled through mud, my blood mixed with roots. 100 roses opened at once. I couldn't look away. My betrayal, my hunger, my pride, all the ways I had polished the rot and called it purity. The maze didn't want to punish me, it wanted me to see. At last the center, a clearing. A single stalk rose from the briars, untouched by thorn, bearing a bloom of pale white petals that shimmered like morning frost, the flower that halted time. I reached for it, but the thorns coiled around my ankles, not to drag me down, to show me the final bloom. From my heart it unfurled, dark, shining, and in it my truest self, not perfect, not pure, not even kind, but honest and tired, so very tired. I touched the flower, not to take it, to let it go. It turned to ash, time surged on, and I wept. I walked from the maze at dawn. The briars parted without resistance. I was bloodied, scarred, but lighter, not holy, not flawless, just real, and in the end, that was enough. The fire took him, not a slow creeping one. No, this was wild, hungry flame, red as wrath, and swift as thought. By the time I reached the cottage, the roof had fallen in, and the garden was already turning to cinder. I ran through smoke, splinters and coals clawed my boots. I shouted his name. No answer, just the pop of burning beams, and a shape, just for a breath, flickering at the edge of the trees, cloaked in ash, wreathed in smoke. It didn't run, it drifted, carrying something small in its arms. I knew, even then, but I ran after it anyway. After they called me mad when I returned to the village, and said I would go after the smoke walker, said, no man followed that path, and came back the same. I didn't argue, I was already not the same. The land beyond the fire was ruined. No wind, no birds, just a blanket of ash, thick as snow, turning the sky to chalk. I walked through the bones of burned trees, past the ghosts of homes and the shells of animals scorched in place. The figure always just ahead. I never saw its face, but I heard lullabies in its wake, and laughter. His laughter. The woman made of cinders barred my path. Her skin flaked with every breath, her hair a curtain of ember threads. Where do you go, Ash Walker? To find my son, I said. She looked into my eyes for a long time, then held out her hand. Your first memory, the moment he was born. I hesitated. She smiled sadly. You cannot carry love through this land without cost. Yes, I gave it, and forgot the scent of new skin. The way his first cry made me fall to my knees, but I walked on. Next was a river of soot, guarded by a ferryman, whose oars were broken branches, and whose boat was hollowed from a coffin. Why do you seek the child? He asked. Because he is mine. Then give me the first time he said your name. I did, and forgot how his voice sounded when he called me Papa. But I stepped into the boat, and crossed. The wasteland deepened. I passed playgrounds turned to charcoal, cribs blackened to splinters, tiny shoes buried in grey. I wept, I think. It's hard to remember. The third gate was kept by a man of glass, cracked and smoking from within. He asked for the moment we last embraced, the last time I kissed his forehead. I gave it. My arms felt empty afterward, but I walked. By now the smoke-wreathed figure was close. I could hear him breathing. Not the figure, my boy, his breath, his sleep sounds, right there behind the veil. I reached out, and was stopped. A tree stood in the center of the ash field, burned black but alive, leaves made of scorched memories, bark etched with names. It spoke in a voice like my own. To pass, give his name. My hands trembled. Without it, it said, you may not go further. I screamed. But if I give that, I'll forget everything. The tree did not answer. It didn't need to. I gave it, and the name vanished. From tongue, from mind, gone. I walked forward, no longer knowing why, only that something waited. The smoke-wreathed figure turned. In its arms a boy, sleeping, peaceful. He looked familiar. A pang in my chest, something once held, now hollow. Do you wish to carry him? The figure asked. I nodded. It laid the boy in my arms. He was warm. My tears fell without meaning, without memory, just grief, like breathing, like ash. We stood there a long time, man and boy, stranger and stranger, bound by a loss I could no longer name. Somewhere far off I heard a bell toll. The fire was over, but the smoke never left. But I walked still, carrying him, through dreams, through silence, through the world that forgets, as I did, as I must. They call me the father of ashes, but I am no one, not anymore, only a vessel for sorrow that has no name, Nos, and yet I hold him close, because some burdens are heavier than memory, and some love outlives even the self. The villagers call me blessed. They see the boy with clean hands and quiet manners, who brings herbs to the old, fish to the hungry, and prayers to the dead. My hair is gold, as the sunflowers in the fall fields, and my eyes, so I'm told, are soft, gentle, human, but only in the day. At night, I am something else, something born of water too dark to see through, and blood too old to name. I am the son of a drowned priestess, and a demon that lives in the deep of the marsh, and I am changing. The village never speaks of her, not my mother, not truly. They whisper about the priestess who walked into the bog one night, with flowers in her hands and didn't come out. They say the marsh took her, that she sang while she sank, that the trees bowed as she passed. They don't know she returned, just once, cradling me, a child too quiet, a child too cold, a child whose skin smelled faintly of silt. They took me in anyway. The midwife wrapped me in salt and rosemary. The elder blessed me under the sun 3 times. They gave me a name, a roof, a place, but I never stopped hearing the marsh, and when night falls I return to it. It begins with the ache in my lungs, a pulling, as if the air is too thin, then my skin dampens, hardens, scales like fish hide, my mouth twists wider, my voice fragile by day, erupts into a cry that cracks the reeds. I run to the edge of the bog, barefoot, always barefoot. I cannot stay indoors, and there under the pale pull of the moon, I become the creature I am meant to be, thin-limbed, wailing, drawn to the black water like it's calling me home. The villagers don't see this part, I made sure of that, until the dreams began. In the dreams, I see him, my father, not with a face, never that, just a shape in the mire, a shadow in the water that pulses like a heartbeat. He hums through the reeds, and I wake with mud under my fingernails. The elder told me once, when my eyes turned green for a moment too long, what they believe I must do. Your father is the source of your curse, she said, placing a knife in my hands. If you face him, if you slay the demon, you'll be free, free. The word rang through me like a cracked bell. So I tried. The first time, I entered the bog at dusk. Before the change took hold, I carried the knife like a talisman, whispering the elder's words. The water rippled. He rose, not all at once, just enough. A limb made of root and smoke, a voice that felt like drowning. My son, he said, and I stabbed. He did not die. The blade passed through him like mist, but something entered me in return. That night, I didn't change back, not fully. My nails stayed black. My breath rattled like reeds. I hid it, barely. Debarred. I tried again, and again. Each time, more of him stayed inside me. My bones shifted, my teeth sharpened. I saw fish scatter when I stepped into the stream. Dogs refused my touch. Children stared, not in awe, but fear. And I wondered, was I killing him, or becoming him? The village still believes in me. They call me protector, healer. They ask me to bless their boats before they fish the marsh. But they don't see how my eyes no longer reflect in the water, or how my breath fogs glass, even in summer. They don't hear me singing at night, or screaming. I went to the elder again, begged her to tell me more. She looked at me like I was already gone. There is no freeing what was born, she said, only choosing what it becomes. That night, I walked into the marsh without the knife. I didn't come to fight. I came to ask, why me? I said, standing waist deep in black water. My father rose from the reeds, more formed in shape. You are mine, he said, and hers. You are both. I don't want to be either, I said. He smiled. You don't get to choose the blood, but you choose the song. The next morning, I woke in the shallows. No pain, no hunger, just silence, and the sound of birds returning. I still change at night, but now I listen. I walk the marsh with careful steps, wailing only when I must. Not a curse, not a beast, a watcher, half boy, half thing, whole in a way I never was. The villagers whisper that the demon is sleeping, that the prince of the bog guards the water's edge. They leave offerings. I don't take them, but I sing for them when the storms come, and the floods never reach their doors. Dad, I still fear the shape in the deep, still fear what I might become, but I know now, running from the monster only gives it power. Facing it makes it part of you. I am not just his son, I am myself, and I am learning how to live with the scales. The first time I saw her, she stood at the edge of the sea, where the foaming brine kissed the sand like a supplicant before a queen. She was human, fragile, and radiant, cloaked in moonlight and mystery, and I, a creature of hooves and wild plains, should never have approached. But fate is a hunter, and its arrows pierce where they please. I remember the wind tugging at my mane, salt on my lips, the warmth of her gaze. She sang then not words, but a melody that curled around my chest and squeezed like longing. I dared not move, not even to breathe. She turned, smiled, and vanished into the forested cliffs before I could speak. That night, I returned to the herd but could not eat. The grasses tasted like ash. My hooves itched for the shore. For days I wandered alone, hoping she would return. When she did, she brought no song, only silence and sorrow. Her village, she said, was dying, a sickness in the wells. Her people could not leave. Their legs, she said with a wistful smile, were not as swift as mine. What could I offer her? I, with the lower half of a beast and a prince's blood I had never asked for. She came again and again, and with each meeting, I forgot what it meant to run free. I learned her name, her laughter, her stories. She taught me to fear the sea, not for its storms, but for its vastness, how it promised much and gave little. I told her of the stars over the mountain passes, and how the winds there smelled of pine and old snow. We never touched, but our souls brushed like falling leaves. One night, under a red moon, she pressed a hand to my flank. If you could be like me, she whispered, would you? I did not answer then. What could I say? That I would trade 4 strong legs for 2 weak ones, just to walk beside her through her broken village. That I would abandon the wind, the hills, the gallop of my blood, just to feel her fingers on my skin. I sought the help of the crag witch, an old mare with a serpent's tongue and eyes like boiling pitch. She lived in a cave beneath the highlands, where even the hawks dared not fly. You would trade your hoofs for heels, she rasped. Foolish colt, I would trade more, I said, and meant it. She asked for my voice, not my speech, but my song, the music in my blood, the joy of the gallop, my freedom. I gave it freely. The pain was fire. My legs split, warped, twisted. My heart bucked like a panicked foal. When it was done, I stood trembling on 2 feet, human from head to toe, weak as a newborn. She found me by the sea, where I had first seen her. She wept and held me and called me beautiful, but my silence haunted us. I could no longer tell her of the stars, or how I missed the feel of earth beneath pounding hooves. I followed her to the village, and though I walked beside her, I had never felt so far away. Days turned to weeks. The villagers smiled at me, this strange mute wanderer, who had saved their daughter from loneliness. But their wells were still poisoned. Their crops still failed. I could not help them. I was no healer. I was no hero. She grew quiet. The joy drained from her eyes like light from a dying sun. One night, I woke to find her staring at the sea. I touched her shoulder, and she flinched. I asked you if you could be like me, she said, voice brittle, but I never asked if I could be like you. She ran then, into the woods, and I followed, weak, stumbling, struggling to keep up with my new legs. I caught up to her as she lay against a tree, panting loudly. I'm sorry, she said. I wanted you to be something you're not. And there it was, truth cold as rain. I had changed my body, but not my soul. I had left behind who I was for love, and lost both. At dawn, I returned to the crag witch. I could not beg. I had no voice, but she looked into my eyes, and saw all she needed. You've learned, she said. Pain teaches what pride never could. She returned to me what I had lost, though some songs I would never sing again. My body grew strong, hooved and swift once more. I did not see the girl again, but sometimes, at twilight, I gallop along the cliffs and see her silhouette on the shore. She does not wave, nor do I stop, but the wind carries her song, and I remember that once I gave everything for love, and though it broke me, I do not regret it. I was born in a city of light. The towers of Illyrin spiraled into the heavens, spun from silver and star glass. The elves who lived within them were as radiant as the dawn, tall, slender, their eyes like polished gems, their laughter like wind chimes in spring, and amid their perfection, I was a stain. I do not remember my mother. They told me she died giving birth, and no one claimed the role of father. I was left in the hall of the hearth-keepers, raised by the elder maids who swept ash from the great fires and mended the robes of the high-born. Even they looked upon me with veiled pity, for I was hunched, my back twisted like gnarled root. My skin bore the color of damp ash, and soot clung to me no matter how I scrubbed. My ears were too wide, my fingers too short, my eyes glowing faintly gold instead of the moonlit silver of the elves. They called me Smudge, Crackborn, Forge Burden, never by name. I learned early not to speak unless spoken to move quietly, to shrink when others passed. I became as much a fixture in the great city as the moss on the lower walls, noticed only when someone wanted it gone. But I watched the smiths in the lower tier, who shaped blades that sang. I watched the glass weavers who spun crystal wings for the humming falcons. And more than anything, I watched the forge. There was a forge beneath Illyrin, older than even the eldest trees, carved into the roots of the mountain itself. It was said the fire there had burned since the world's first breath. Only the master artisans were allowed within its echoing halls. I was not permitted near, but the forge called to me. I stole moments between sweeping, between hauling coal to creep to its edge. I listened to the hammer song through stone. I smelled the tang of molten metal. Then sometimes, when no one looked, I touched the cold iron scraps discarded at the edge of the smithy and whispered to them, and they answered, not in words, not as elves speak, but they warmed, shifted, shivered as if eager. The first time I shaped a thing was by accident. I had found a broken blade, its edge chipped, its hilt cracked. I held it in my small soot-streaked hands and imagined it whole. I closed my eyes and felt not just the metal but the spirit within it. I pressed my palms together, and when I opened them the blade was new. Not as it had been but better. It hummed with life. I hid it, terrified. Word of the magic blade spread within days. The nobles whispered of a new artisan, perhaps a child of prophecy. The forge masters seethed, unable to claim credit. I said nothing, but I made more, quietly, in secret. A clasp that sang lullabies, a kettle that brewed perfect tea, a pendant that shimmered with memories of lost love. Still I was nothing in their eyes, until the mountain rumbled, the earth split one night, deep and low. The forge fires dimmed, a crack opened in the deepest floor of Illyrin, a black wound hissing smoke and whispers. Something ancient stirred beneath us, something the elves could not name. Fear swept the city. The queen's artificers could not seal the rift. Their runes failed, their light flickered, and in desperation they called for volunteers to descend into the fissure. No elf stepped forward, but I did. They laughed, of course, but the queen in her wisdom, or her panic, let me go. Let the sootling fall, they said. He's worth less than the coal he carries. I climbed into the earth. The dark closed around me like a fist. Deeper and deeper I went, following the warmth I had known since I first felt the forger's breath. The stone whispered, the metal sang, and when I reached the chamber at the bottom of the world I met them. They were short, their spines hunched like mine, their eyes glowed with molten gold, their scales shimmered like hammered bronze. Kobolds, my people. They did not need to ask who I was, they knew me. One stepped forward, ancient, crowned with iron filigree. You are the Emberborn, she said. They showed me the true forge, not of elven stone, but of dragon bone and living fire. They taught me the songs of shaping, the rites of awakening. I stayed for 7 days and 7 nights, and in that time, I forged my first heart steel, a living blade that pulsed like a heartbeat, that wept when I wept, that stood tall when I did not, and with it I returned. The rift had widened, the darkness was rising, shadows spilled into Illyrin like smoke with teeth. I emerged from the mountain, no longer hunched in fear. My scales shone like firelight, my hands were blackened with sacred soot, my heart steel burned with purpose. The elves stared uncomprehending, and then I drove my blade into the stone. The song of the forge rose, a note that sang into every tower, every root, every bone. The mountain answered, the rift sealed, the dark fled, silence fell. Then all, some bowed, most only stared, but I did not wait for praise. I return to the mountain. The elves remember the Emberborn, though they know not my face. They tell stories of the soot-covered boy who saved their city, who forged miracles, who walked into shadow and returned a king. But I remember more. I remember that worth is not in beauty or birthright. It is in creation, in the spark of craft, in the shaping of the soul into something lasting. And in the mountain's heart I forge still, for in fire and stone I found my truth. I was never what they wanted, born the youngest son of a minor noble house, too soft, too plain, too quiet for court. I watched from the fringes as my elder brothers were groomed for diplomacy and war. I learned early how to smile at the right moment, how to nod and slip away, how to become small, and small I remained. When father died and my brothers marched off to seek fortune, the manor passed to me, a hollow inheritance, crumbling tapestries, empty halls. The estate was noble in name only. The tenants called me the quiet lord. The court barely remembered I lived, but I remembered them. I remembered the way they looked past me, eyes gliding like birds over water. I remembered the heat of laughter that wasn't meant for me. And most of all I remembered her, Lady Sylvine, all silver hair and cruel lips, who once said to my face that I seemed like someone drawn in faint charcoal. It stayed with me. Years passed, the quiet became unbearable. I studied alone in the manor's forgotten libraries, learning the histories no bards sang. I read of mirror glass and soul binding, of glamours that warped the eye and flesh alike. Forbidden, yes, but what good are rules when no one sees you to scold? In the cellar I found it, a shard of the old world, a sliver of shadowed silver, framed in runes that burned cold. A mirror. It did not reflect as a true mirror should. When I looked into it I did not see me. I saw a man handsome and tall, jaw sharp as a blade, eyes aglow with charm. A man who could make Sylvine's breath catch, a man the court would kneel to, and in a whisper like dry silk the mirror spoke. Wear what they long for, become what they see. I reached out, the surface rippled, and I stepped through. The next day, I went to court. Gasps followed me down the hall. They called me radiant, mesmeric. Sylvine looked twice, then a third time, and her lips parted, no longer cruel. Lord Halvan clasped my arm and spoke to me, as if I were a dear friend. Servants scrambled to please me. Even the Queen's steward blinked in wonder and bowed, but they weren't seeing me. The glamour shifted with each gaze. To Sylvine, I was a dashing libertine with stormy eyes. To Halvan, a clever tactician draped in nobility. To the steward, a pillar of poise and wisdom. I saw it in the mirror each night, a different man for every pair of eyes. I told myself it didn't matter, that what mattered was finally being seen. The days blurred, my life became a theater, each room a stage, each face a mirror shaping my own. I stopped sleeping. The mirror no longer needed rituals to change me. It pulsed in my veins, its magic a second skin. But something began to shift. One morning, I passed a polished window and saw a man I did not recognize. His smile was mine, but wrong, wide and fixed, like paint cracking on old wood. Another night Sylvine traced my face and said, dreamily, I adore how your eyes glow like a wolf's under moonlight. I'd never had glowing eyes. Soon I stopped checking mirrors altogether. They lied, or perhaps I did. I tried to find myself again, read old letters, walked the halls of my childhood, touched the familiar oak banister I'd once carved my name into. But the name was gone. Even my voice had changed. I heard it echo once and did not know who spoke. Then came the feast. The Queen herself invited me, said she'd heard tales of the Lord of Many Faces. I sat at the head of the golden table. Jewels glimmered on my hands, wine red as rubies in my cup. Courtiers hung on my every word, and in that moment I felt the hollowness crack. I stood. I am not who you think I am, I said. My voice wavered. I don't know who you see, but it is not me. They laughed, thought it a jest, a clever performance. I fled the hall. In my chamber the mirror stood waiting. Who am I? I whispered. The glass rippled. Shapes swam behind the surface, faces countless shifting. My brothers, My father, Sylvine, the queen, the court, then a child with my eyes crouched in shadow, forgotten, then something else, something tall, grinning, hollow-eyed, wearing all the faces like masks on a string. You are who they love, it said in all their voices at once. You are what they made you. I screamed. I shattered the mirror, but even in shards it reflected, 1,000 fragments, 1,000 selves, all looking back. Then now I wander the manor again, alone. No guests come, the court does not write, the glamour is broken, or perhaps only sleeping. I no longer seek reflections, but sometimes in still water I see him, the man with the shifting face, and he smiles, and sometimes I feel a warmth in my chest, aching and old, the memory of a boy who just wanted to be loved.